Okay, so you'll want to go ahead and open this verb conjugation document from Power School. I'm recording myself if you guys can't tell. You're live from first period, remote learners, and we're going to work on this together. So let's start out by defining what conjugation is. This lesson is over something I took not a lot of time, but some time to describe in person. And we're going to come back to conjugation together. But before we do, I want you to take your own set of notes. I think it helps your brain and it keeps you from spacing out or playing solitaire while I'm talking. So go ahead and go File, Make a Copy. File, Make a Copy. It'll say Copy of Verb Conjugation. That'll save to your drive. And if you ever want to find it again or I ever ask you to look at it again, you can go to Drive and search for conjugation, or however you organize your drive folder is up to you. So let's start with a definition. We've got here sein, to be. Sein is called an irregular verb, but let's write down our definition we had on our other sheet before we conjugate sein. Conjugation is changing a verb depending on the subject of the sentence. And I talked to the class about how you're trained to read for the main idea. And if somebody asked you what the subject of a sentence was in middle school, you would say the main idea, like, I have a dog. Well, it's about a dog. In that sentence, I is the subject because I is the person or thing that has, the person or thing verbing, doing the action. And that'll be more important as we make more complex sentences. But the first verb we really look at is the most complicated verb in German. It's called sein, and it means to be. It doesn't follow a pattern. That means it's unpredictable. When I say I am, I say ich bin. You remember do? How do you say are you 14? Bist du, yeah? Not best du, bist du. I want to say he or she is 15. Ist. Sind, seid, and sind we'll get to in chapter 3 or 4. So here we have a couple of examples. Ich bin 14. Sie ist ein Mädchen. The verb here being bin and ist in those are both forms of sein. Makes a big change when you use it. Other verbs in German, and we're going to start to be introduced to those, are regular. German regular verbs conjugate in a pattern. With some exceptions, the stem of the verb is the part without the E or EN. So your book is going to talk about a stem, a verb stem. And you'll notice eventually that almost all German verbs end in N. All the action words end in N and usually EN. Not every single one, but most of them. So we take the stem, the part without EN or N, and we add back on some letters when we use them. And I want to show you how it works with to today, and then we'll come back to this document later on. Let's look at gehen. Say it with me, gehen. Gehen. We use that to say wie geht's. How's it going? Gehen means to go. And if I want to say I go, I say ich gehe. I take the stem, the part without en, and I add back on an e. You can see that up here. Stay with me. We are almost done. If I want to say you go, I have to conjugate it differently because I'm using do instead of ich. Then it goes to do. My stem is G-E-H, G. I add on S-T, geest. English verbs conjugate, French verbs conjugate, Italian verbs, Spanish verbs. It's nice though because you have in German verbs that follow the pattern, and then you start to recognize pretty quick the verbs that don't, and even the ones that don't get pretty close. So if I want to say he goes or it goes, I take the stem and I add a T, and it's gate. That's where we get the phrase wie geht's dir? Wie geht's dir? Wie geht es dir? How's it going to you? Then over on this side, it's the stem plus en for we. Oops, wir gehen. Here, geht, stem plus t, stem plus en, gehen. If you look under Europe, over here on my whiteboard, you can see this chart. This lives up here. I'm not trying to keep that fact a secret. If we have a quiz or a test where we work really hard on trying to figure this out, and then I really want to see if you have it memorized, I might take it down for a day, but that will live up there basically forever. That shows you how verbs conjugate, and we're going to start really slow with learning verbs. But here's how it would look in two different examples. If I'm saying ich gehe nach Hause, where do you think I'm going? Yeah, I'm going home. Ich gehe nach Hause. Or wir gehen zur Schule. Why does gehen change? Because it depends on who's doing it. I go home, we go to school. In English, it's the same. In German, it makes a small change. If you say ich gehe nach Hause to a German, they would understand that you are going home, okay? But it would sound better to them if you were able to say that as ich gehe nach Hause. All right, let's do wohnen and see if we can make this something we remember later. Based on what I just told you, and looking at the chart up here where it says German verbs, see if you can do wohnen on your own. I bet some of you can figure it out just based on a 5-minute lesson. Others, me asking you to do that is like you asking me to do trigonometry. It's not going to make any sense. Try it. I'll tell you what it is in about 40 seconds. For each of these, you're taking the word wohnen and putting in the stem. Oops. So the stem of wohnen is bone, and then you're going to be adding 1 or 2 letters back on. Could you say I live? Ich wohne. Put in E. The way you could have gotten that information is from up here. It says stem plus E for ich. So for do, what do I add to wohn to say you live? ST. Wo wohnst du? Wo wohnst du is how that would change. Ich wohne in Des Moines. Wo wohnst du? Wohnt in Chicago. Wohnt in Chicago. Gets a T. For wir wohnen in Iowa. Ihr wohnt in Indianola. Y'all live in Indianola. And sie wohnen in Deutschland. What we just did there is we took a verb and conjugated it depending on the subject. To conjugate, typically you're changing what comes after the stem. Okay? The stem of wohnen being wohn, the changes being E, S, T, T, E, N, T, and E, N. I reckon you could do kommen and kennen if I told you they were regular verbs. Heißen is a little irregular. We're going to continually add to this. We're not going to put every verb we learn on this chart, but as we learn some early on, we're going to come back and reference this chart. Okay, let me stop this.